Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I have on my Positions hoodie because today I'm going to be ranking all of Ariana Grande's fragrances. If you're new here, make sure to smash that subscribe button, and if you're not new here, make sure to smash that subscribe button. Okay, so a few things before we start. I'm gonna be ranking only her mainstream line and not any of her limited releases because they're not around anymore, and also I haven't smelled them. And another thing is I don't have all of her fragrances, but I've smelled all of them. I want to start off by saying that Ariana Grande has the best fragrance line out of any celebrity. Also, this list is completely my opinion, and if you have a different ranking, definitely let me know what you guys think. So in last place, we have Thank You Next. So this is definitely a very controversial one. A lot of people say it smells like pickle juice, and okay, like it does. Sorry, it doesn't smell like pickle juice, but like I can definitely see where they're coming from because it does have kind of this like sweet acidic type note to it. But the reason why I Thank You Next is in last place for me is because I just don't love how it smells. It has notes of, actually let me look this shit up. Okay, sorry. It has notes of raspberry, pear, coconut, pink rose, macaroons, and musk. So it's definitely very fruity, but I think the dominant scent for this fragrance is coconut. And coconut is a very either I love it or I hate it because there are like very like deep creamy coconuts, like the kind you find in Dolce & Gabbana The Only One Intense, and also Versace Crystal Noir, where the coconut is just really sensual and creamy and delicious. But there's also the coconut that's like super artificial, summer, like tropical sunscreen Bath and Body Works type coconut, and I think that coconut is absolutely repulsive, and I think that is a little bit what I get from Thank You Next. So just right off the bat, I don't really love the smell. It's very sweet and fruity. It's kind of combined with this light tanginess, and I think that's kind of where people get that pickle juice type smell. But just overall, I don't think that this is a bad fragrance at all, and I also have heard from a lot of people that this is a fragrance that you need to give it time to like let it grow on you, and I've never really given it that chance. But I do still put it behind all of her other fragrances because I feel like none of her other ones are fragrances that like I feel like I have to like wait to like them. So we're gonna move on with the list, and I'm gonna say from here on out, honestly, besides Thank You Next, which is on the bottom, and then the absolute best fragrance in her collection, in my opinion, like everything in the middle I feel like is very interchangeable. Like I feel like it really varies from person to person, but I think that everything in this like middle section, they're all very great fragrances. The order of them is just kind of like my opinion. But in the back of this list, I have Thank You Next 2.0. This is one of her more recent releases. She actually like released it without like saying anything, and then it just like started like popping up in stores. But I think this smells very different from the original Thank You Next. It gets rid of that coconut and it replaces it with a lot of different fruits. We have like apple juice, wild strawberry, pomegranate, and then there are also some florals in there, but honestly I don't really get any of the florals. This for me, it's very basic, it's very simple, but it smells nice. It's just very sweet. I don't typically like apple juice, and I do pick up a small trace of apple in this fragrance, so I think that is a little off-putting for me, but I think it's fine overall. This fragrance I think is just lower on the list because it's very sweet and fruity, and I feel like there's not much after that, so I feel like it could potentially give like Bath and Body Works vibes, but like not really. Okay, I would say the opening is definitely something I feel like you could find at Bath and Body Works maybe, but I think where this fragrance really shines is on the dry down. The dry down is so beautiful, and also the longevity of this fragrance is really nice. So I do think that this is a nice fragrance overall. It's just those opening notes I'm not super big fan of, and I think that there are other fragrances that, in my opinion, smell nicer. Okay, so next up we have Moonlight. This, I feel like this is a really hard one for me to place because I really love this fragrance, but it's also just like there was a point where I like used this one so much that like I got really sick of it, and now I feel like I never reach for it, but it's also like kind of like my fault. To me, I feel like Moonlight smells like something I've smelled before, and it just has this very feminine, classic, kind of darker, fruity fruity floral vibe to it. It is definitely one of her less vibrant, sweet, you could almost say like juvenile fragrances, because this one is a little bit deeper. It has like plum and blackcurrant, which makes it smell a little deeper. And I do think the plum and blackcurrant notes are very prominent, and they also smell very nice. This kind of reminds me of Thank You Next 2.0, but just darker and more suitable for like nighttime, I would say. I think this is a very beautiful fragrance. I like overall, there are a lot of things that I do like about it, but I think that there's nothing about this fragrance that is super standout for me. And I think because of that, I would put it lower-ish on the list, but I still do really love Moonlight. And I think this is such a great entryway fragrance. Like, it's such a good essential to have because it's just a high quality, darker, fruity floral fragrance. Next up, we have Sweet Like Candy. This is definitely a fan favorite. I see all over TikTok, like a lot of people are always talking about Sweet Like Candy. I do think that this is a very nice smelling fragrance, but personally, it is not one that I would reach for. I feel like there's not really an occasion where I would think, oh, like Sweet Like Candy would be like really perfect for this, because it is like, as the name suggests, it is very sweet, it is very light, it has a subtle kind of creaminess to it, and it does smell really, really sweet. It is potentially overbearing, which is I think why I personally don't see this as my favorite, but I do think that this is a really, really nice smelling fragrance, just not one that I think is good for everyday use. I don't see it as being super childish, but I definitely think that this would not appeal to an older audience because it is just like very bright, very, very sweet. Okay, next up on my list, I have God Is a Woman. So this is her most recent release, I think. Anyways, God Is a Woman. I first smelled this at Ulta and I actually really, really loved the smell of this. I thought it smelled really, really pretty. It is very unique. I felt like looking at the notes, I would expect it to be just like a very, you know, average, classic smelling, fruity floral fragrance. But there is something in it, I feel like, that really makes it stand out. It adds this kind of like unique, sweet lightness to the opening. It has notes of pear, and then in the top note, it also has ambrit, which is called musk mallow. I actually don't know what that is, but I think that is one of the things that makes it smell special. And honestly, I think it's definitely one of the just scents alone that I like the most out of her collection. However, the lasting power of this fragrance is not good. This is not a fragrance that is going to last you all day. I would say you can expect 2 to 4 hours. I feel like this is the only fragrance in her line that has poor lasting power. I feel like everything else has really nice longevity, but just like God Is a Woman, it has a really beautiful scent, but it just doesn't last, so I can't really put it any higher. Next up, we have Ari, and this is the very first fragrance she's ever come out with. The first time I smelled this, I instantly really, really loved it. Surprisingly, I think for me, I've begun to like it less over time. I by no means like dislike it now, but I don't see myself reaching for this one because Ari to me is just almost to the point that it's kind of overbearing, but that is kind of just my preference. Aside from that though, I think this is such a beautiful scent. It's super, super fruity. I definitely get that raspberry note in there, and it just smells really, really fresh. It's super bright. This to me is kind of similar to Sweet Like Candy, but a little more fruity, less kind of creamy gourmand, and also a little bit more sophisticated. This is also a very, very well-loved fragrance, and I can definitely see why, because there are so many great things about this fragrance. It has really nice lasting power. The projection in sillage is on point. Runner-up for my second place pick, I have Rem. This is definitely, I feel like there are so many aspects of Rem that I just adore. There was so much meaning and backstory behind the creation of this fragrance, and I feel like just the concept and the execution of this fragrance is stunning in itself. The fragrance itself is also really, really beautiful in my opinion. I've already made a video on this, but again, I get this very soft, powdery lavender. This could definitely be an everyday signature scent even, because it lasts long, it's very inoffensive, it dries down really beautifully, and it leans almost kind of unisex, so I think it's just like a very versatile pick. Rem for me is a very well-rounded fragrance. You can wear it on its own, you can also pair it with others, which is definitely not not something that I see with her other fragrances. Like honestly, for me, I wouldn't pair Ari with anything else because Ari in itself is just already so sweet and fruity that I feel like pairing it with another fragrance could just like make the scents kind of clash. But Rem is one that just blends in so beautifully with any other fragrance. It is such just an easy fragrance to reach for. I really like this one, and I think that everyone should have this in their collection. And in first place, I think we all saw it coming. To no one's surprise, we have Cloud. And I'm also going to pair this with Cloud 2.0. Like they kind of like share the #1 spot because like they to me smell super similar. I hate being basic and just like having like the super popular opinion, but Cloud is just a fragrance that stands above the rest. This just really outshines the rest of her fragrances. It has this creamy, sophisticated, indulgent, addictive, synthetic scent that none of the other fragrances in her line are able to achieve. So luxurious for what it is. I feel like judging by the bottle and honestly just like the price of it, you would never expect it to smell so luxurious. It is sweet, but it's not overbearing at all. This is a very well blended and just, I feel like, controlled kind of sweet. It's definitely a gourmand, and I feel like gourmand fragrances tend to have weaker longevity, but this for me, I've never had an issue with the longevity. I think this totally lasts me throughout the day. It wears so beautifully on both clothes and skin. I think Cloud and Cloud 2.0 have very comfortably taken their place in the #1 spot. That is my ranking of all of Ariana Grande's fragrances. Let me know if you guys agree with my list, and if you have a different opinion, definitely let me know because I'm curious to see what people like. I feel like any fragrances outside of Thinking Next 2.0 and Cloud, so like any of the ones in the middle that I mentioned, I feel like are really interchangeable. They're for me just like dependent on my mood, the occasion, whatever. That wraps up my rankings. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys soon.